Monday mornings at Mercy Hill Medical Center were never calm. You know that kind of hospital chaos that feels like a beehive someone kicked? Yeah, that was the vibe. Phones ringing, patients complaining, a kid crying about a broken arm, a paramedic arguing with a vending machine because it ate his last dollar, nurses speed walking like the floor was on fire. Just noise. Pure, messy, normal noise. And then it happened. Everything, and I mean everything, cut off. It wasn't gradual. It didn't fade out. It wasn't like, oh hey, weird, it's getting quiet. No. It was like someone hit a giant mute button on the world. The phone ringing? Gone. The crying kid? Silent. The vending machine guy? Froze mid-argument like God pressed pause. Even the overhead announcements shut up like they were scared to talk. People stopped mid-step, mid-sentence, mid-breath. You could feel it. This cold sweep through the ER, like the whole building suddenly realized something was about to walk in and change everything. And then, the automatic doors breathed open. A few people turned lazily at first, probably expecting some impatient visitor or an EMT late to shift change. But then, they saw him, and the kind of silence that followed. Man, you don't hear that kind of silence unless something truly wrong is happening. A German shepherd stumbled through the doorway. Not walked, not trotted. Stumbled. Like every step was borrowed strength. His coat wasn't even a coat anymore. Soaked, matted, torn, drenched so deeply in blood and mud, it looked like someone dragged him through a nightmare. And draped across his back, sliding, limp, barely holding on, was a little girl, 7 years old. Lily Hart. Her arms hung down like she didn't remember how to hold them. Her hair, stiff with dried blood. Her shirt. God. Her shirt. Supposed to be white, but looked like it had been pulled from a horror scene. Her face was pale in a way no child's face should ever be. A nurse dropped her clipboard. It smacked the floor like a gunshot. Nobody moved. One doctor whispered, "Oh my God." Another said, Is that blood?" Someone else muttered, How is he even standing?" But the dog, Ranger, didn't look at any of them. His eyes were locked forward like he'd laser-targeted the nurse's station, like he knew exactly where he was supposed to deliver her. He took one more step. His front legs shook so hard you could see the tremor from across the room. Then his back legs buckled. He dropped to one knee. If dogs even have knees. But that's exactly what it looked like. A slow, heartbreaking collapse. Someone gasped. Someone else swore under their breath. But Ranger didn't fall all the way. No. He pushed against the floor, claws scraping, muscles shivering, trying, fighting to lift himself again. He wasn't giving up. Not until someone took Lily from his back. One more step. A horrible scraping step. Then another. A streak of blood followed him. A trail pointing back to whatever hell he'd crawled out of. And then, right when he was halfway to the station, Lily slipped. Just an inch, but enough that every single person in that lobby sucked in a breath at the same time. That's when Nurse Allison Brooks snapped back to life. She sprinted forward so fast her badge flew off her scrubs, dropped to her knees, hands up, voice soft, but shaking. Hey, buddy. It's okay. I'm right here. I've got her. I've got her, okay? Ranger growled. Not a I'm gonna bite you growl. Level moderate. No. Oh, don't you dare take her from me growl. A sound so raw, so broken, it made the hair on everyone's arms rise. Allison didn't flinch. I promise, she whispered. I'm helping. I swear. And then, something happened I'll never forget for the rest of my life. Ranger looked at her. Really looked. His eyes weren't animal eyes in that moment. They were old, exhausted, desperate, begging, almost human. He shifted his weight, barely, but enough for Allison to slide her arms under Lily's small, freezing body. When she lifted the child, she staggered, not from weight, but from shock. Oh God, she breathed. She's so cold. Someone yelled, Trauma Bay, move! Another shouted for a gurney. People suddenly exploded into action. Monitors beeped, alarms went off, feet thundered across the tile. But Ranger forced himself forward one last time. He dragged his body across the floor, leaving a smear of dark red behind him, and collapsed right in front of the trauma room doors. He tried. God, he tried. To lift his head, just to look inside. Like he needed to make sure Lily was still alive. Like he'd die right there if she wasn't. And honestly, from the way he looked, he just might. The second those trauma doors slammed shut behind Lily, it felt like the whole ER tightened, like the walls leaned in a little, like the air suddenly got heavier, like the building itself was waiting to see if that little girl was gonna make it. And Ranger, God, Ranger. He tried to follow her in. Of course he did. He dragged himself forward, front paws scraping the tile, back legs barely working, and he shoved his whole body into the trauma door like he thought he could break it open with pure willpower. A security guard caught him, which honestly was the wrong move, because the dog snapped his teeth, not to bite, not attacking, but this panicked, broken, let me go, she needs me, kind of snap. Easy. Hey boy, the guard stammered, already looking like he wanted to apologize to the universe. Ranger ignored him completely. He pressed his face to the tiny window of the door, panting hard, eyes wild and glassy. He smeared blood across the glass in these awful streaks, and every nurse walking by froze like they'd just stepped into a horror movie. Inside the trauma room, you could hear shouting, doctors calling numbers, machines beeping like a messed-up orchestra, the clatter of metal trays. But out here, it was Ranger's world. He wasn't sitting. He wasn't resting. He wasn't even breathing right. He was waiting, listening. And then, God, this is where it got creepy. In a sad, messed up, heartbreaking way. Lily's heart monitor dipped. You could hear it faintly through the door. Beep, 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 beep. A nurse inside yelled, "Heart rate dropping! She's crashing! Move!" And before the sentence even finished, Ranger let out this sound, this horrible, soul-splitting howl that made every hair on my arms shoot up. It wasn't a bark. It wasn't a whine. It was like something primal ripped straight out of him. People in the hallway jumped. One nurse dropped a stack of gloves. Someone whispered, "Jesus Christ." Ranger slammed his head into the door. Bang! Hard enough the window shook. He did it again. Bang! Blood flicked off his forehead onto the glass. "Stop him! He's hurting himself!" someone shouted. But then, Dr. Marlon Reyes, trauma-led, big presence, tired eyes, the guy who looked like he'd seen every kind of nightmare, stepped up beside the door. And instead of yelling, he watched Ranger for maybe, I don't know, 3 seconds. That was all it took. Then he muttered, almost to himself, almost like he couldn't believe he was saying it, "Holy hell, the dog knows." An intern blinked at him. "Knows what?" Reyes pointed toward the trauma room. "Her vitals. He's reacting before the monitors do." The intern frowned. "Sir, that's impossible." Reyes didn't even look at her. "That's what's bothering me." Inside, Lily's heart rate spiked. Another nurse yelled, "Get a warmer! She's freezing! Her core temp's at 92!" And right on cue, Ranger shoved his shoulder into the door so hard the guard stumbled backward. It was like he could feel her slipping away. "Let him be," Reyes snapped when someone reached to restrain Ranger. "If he wants to stay at that door, he stays at that damn door." Everyone backed off, and Ranger, shaking, bleeding, barely upright, pressed his cheek to the glass and whined this low, dragging, heartbreaking sound. Like he was begging, like he was apologizing, like he was saying, "I'm still here. Don't leave me." He slid down the door until he was lying on the floor, sides heaving. Every breath sounded like gravel. His eyes never left Lily. Minutes dragged. 5, 10, 15. Every time someone inside shouted something urgent. "Pressure dropping. Heart rate unstable. Prep for fluids." Ranger reacted like he'd been kicked. He twitched, flinched, whimpered, tried to stand, and failed. At one point, he actually managed to lift himself halfway, but his back legs gave out, and he collapsed again with a dull thud that echoed down the hall. And honestly, watching him hurt worse than hearing the monitors. Nurse Allison Brooks knelt beside him. "Hey, boy. Hey, I know, I know. She's fighting. You hear me? She's fighting. Ranger didn't look at her, didn't blink, didn't breathe unless Lily did. He just kept his nose pressed to the window like Lily might disappear if he moved even 1 inch. Then, just when everything felt like it was hanging by a thread, the long, awful alarm inside suddenly slowed, from a panicked scream of beeps to steady ones. Not perfect, not good, but steady. A nurse shouted, "We got her back up. Heart rate stabilizing." Reyes exhaled like someone let him live again. "Good girl. Keep going." And Ranger, he let out this tiny sound, barely a breath, like relief, like hope, like he'd just pulled himself back from a cliff. He rested his head fully against the glass, eyes half closed, chest still rising too fast, too shallow. But for the first time since they dragged Lily inside, he looked like he believed she might survive. Not because the doctors said so, not because the machines beeped right. Time 600 poems. But because he felt it. And honestly, everyone standing there, nurses, doctors, security, random people in the hallway, they all realized the same terrifying, beautiful thing. This dog wasn't waiting for updates. He was the update. He knew Lily's heartbeat like it was tied to his own. And nothing, absolutely nothing, was going to pull him away from that door. Not until she opened her eyes again. And while Ranger was fighting to stay alive outside those trauma doors, something else was happening miles away. Something darker. Something that made everything suddenly make sense. And somehow way worse. Bear Creek Forest. Yeah, that place. Locals joked it was haunted. But honestly, they didn't know how close they were. Detective Nolan Briggs and Ranger Officer Jenna Liu had been out there since sunrise, boots sinking into damp earth, following the same trail of blood Ranger had carved through the world. And it wasn't one clean line either. It was smeared, broken, dotted like he'd stumbled, fallen, gotten back up, dragged himself, and kept going anyway. Jesus, Nolan muttered, crouching near a rock stained dark. He bled this much and still carried her? Jenna let out a slow breath. Either that, or something else was bleeding too. Neither of them said what they were really thinking. There was no something else. There was Ranger and the kid. The deeper they pushed into Bear Creek, the quieter it got. And not normal forest quiet. No birds, no bugs, no wind. I'm talking dead quiet. The kind of silence that makes your stomach drop before you even understand why. Nolan slowed down. Do you feel that? Jenna glanced around. Yeah. Air's wrong. Air's wrong. In cop language basically means this. Whatever happened here wasn't human-level bad. It was nightmare bad. A few minutes later, they found it. Or, well, it found them. because the smell hit first. Rotting wood, cold ashes, metal, fear. If fear had a smell, it was in that air. Jenna stepped into a small clearing and froze so suddenly Nolan nearly collided with her. "Oh, no, 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 no," she whispered. And there it was, a makeshift campsite, if you could even call it that. Like someone slapped together survival gear with rage instead of hands. A blue tarp hung crooked between two dying trees. Clothes, shredded and scattered across the dirt. The fire pit, cold, long dead, filled with charred scraps of something none of them wanted to identify. Dirt torn up, kicked, clawed, fought. And then, God. Nolan saw the rope, a piece of it still tied to a root, frayed, cut, like someone had broken free, or someone else had tried to stop them. "Lily," Jenna whispered, voice shaking. Nolan swallowed hard. "Let's keep moving." They stepped deeper in, and then they saw the tree. One big crooked oak standing just off center, and carved right into its bark. Deep, angry, uneven strokes were the words, "No way back." Straight lines, jagged edges, splinters sticking out like the tree itself was bleeding. Jenna touched the letters with her glove. "He carved this while she was here." Nolan stared at it like it was staring back. This wasn't just a camp. This was a message. "Message to who?" Jenna asked. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Everyone knew who. The dirt beneath the tree told more of the story. Tiny footprints, lilies, dog tracks, rangers, and adult boot prints pacing in circles around both, over and over, like a predator wearing grooves into the ground. "Look," Jenna said, voice suddenly tight. "Time 500 mil." She pointed near a log. Nolan crouched. Marks etched into the soil, 5 deep grooves carved straight through the dirt. "Fingernails," Nolan said softly. "Lilies." The air felt colder. They kept scanning the area and found even more. A torn sleeve from Lily's hoodie, a broken plastic hair clip, a bracelet snapped clean in half, and next to a pile of leaves, ranger's blood. A lot of it. Jenna knelt beside it. "He must have laid here next to her," she whispered. "Look, you see how the dirt's flattened? Like he curled around her." Nolan nodded slowly. "He kept her warm." "And alive," Jenna added, voice shaking. "He was bleeding out, and he still—" She wiped her eyes. "He still stayed." They stood there for a moment. Not cops, not investigators, just 2 people staring at a place where a child lived through something no child should ever know. And then Nolan found something else. "Jenna," he said, voice low. She turned. Nolan held up a small flashlight. Bent, cracked, dead. Etched on the handle were messy little stickers. Cartoon suns, a pony, a rainbow, lilies. "Oh my God," Jenna whispered, pressing a hand to her chest. Nolan didn't say anything. He couldn't. His jaw clenched. His eyes went dark. They pieced the truth together in seconds. Lily wasn't just held here. She wasn't just scared. She wasn't just cold. She was tormented. Night after night. Isolated. Punished. Left to freeze beside a dog who was barely hanging on, himself. And somehow they survived each night together. Nolan blew out a breath. "We need to get this back to Reyes. They'll want details." Jenna didn't move. She glanced at the carved tree again. "Nolan, look around. Really look. Everything here," she gestured to the shredded fabric, the claw marks, the snapped rope. "This wasn't just survival. This was a war." "And they won," Nolan said. "Barely." Jenna nodded slowly. "But still, they won." They stood there one more moment, letting the forest speak in its awful silence. Because sometimes a place doesn't need sound to scream. Then Jenna whispered something that sent chills down Nolan's spine. "If Ranger hadn't found her when he did, do you think Lily makes it out of here alive? So let me ask you. Yeah, you, the one reading this. What's your gut say? 1, 2, or 5? And while Nolan and Jenna were still standing in that awful clearing, piecing together the horror of what had happened out there, something else was unfolding back at Mercy Hill. Something just as heavy, just as dark, just as impossible to look away from. Lily woke up, not gently, not peacefully. She snapped awake like she'd been yanked out of a nightmare by the throat. Nurse Allison was charting something when she heard it. A sharp gasp, then a choking cry, then the clatter of metal as Lily jolted so hard she yanked her IV stand sideways. Hey, sweetheart, easy, wait, don't pull." But Lily was already ripping at the tubing, trying to sit up, eyes wide in pure animal panic. The IV tore from her hand, a thin line of blood sliding down her wrist, dripping onto the sheets. She didn't notice, didn't feel it, didn't care. Her voice came out broken, like her throat had been scraped raw. Is he coming back?" Allison froze. Just half a second, but enough for Lily's terror to spike. "Don't let him take me again. Please, please don't. He said he would. He said..." Hey, Lily, look at me," Allison said, scooting to the bedside. "You're safe. You're in the hospital. No one is coming in here." But Lily didn't hear her. Her shaking hands grabbed fistfuls of her own hair as she curled forward, breath hitching like she was drowning in air. She kept whispering the same words. "He's coming. I heard him. I heard him. I heard him." It was a kind of fear adults don't have anymore, the kind that crawls into your bones and refuses to leave. Allison gently took her hands. Honey, listen. You're safe. Ranger brought you here. He's right outside the door. Remember? The big dog? Lily's crying, stuttered. Her lips trembled. Then, soft, trembling, she asked, He's alive? Allison nodded. He's hurt, but he's here. Lily let out this tiny breath, half relief, half heartbreak. He didn't leave me, even when he got hurt. Allison sat at the edge of the bed, voice calm, low, steady. Can you tell me what happened out there? Only if you want. Only if you can. Lily's eyes drifted upward toward the ceiling lights. For a moment, she didn't look like a 7-year-old. She looked older, tired. Like every memory hurt her hands when she touched it. She swallowed hard. It was dark, she whispered, and cold. So cold I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. She paused, blinking slowly. Ethan Crow. He tied me to a tree, with my arms up, said I wasn't allowed to talk, said if I screamed he'd do worse. Her body shook, like her muscles remembered every hit. He left for hours, sometimes all night. I didn't know if he was coming back, or if he was right behind me. Allison's throat tightened, but she didn't interrupt. Lily rubbed her wrists, like she could still feel the rope burning her skin. He didn't give me food, she whispered. Only water sometimes. And he said it was my fault I was cold. He said I should stop shaking. Allison's hands curled into fists. And then, Lily said, her voice going softer somehow, something moved in the dark. She froze again, like even the memory intimidated her. At first I thought it was him, she whispered. I thought he was hiding, waiting. She sniffed. But it was Ranger. Her face crumpled, not in fear this time, but something aching and deep. He came out of the trees like he was hurt. He limped. He had dirt in his fur, and his leg looked weird, like he couldn't bend it right. Allison felt tears sting her eyes. Lily continued, her words breaking apart. He lay down next to me, right next to me, even though I was tied up. He pushed his body against mine to keep me warm. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. When I cried, he licked my face so I wouldn't feel alone. Allison placed a hand gently on Lily's arm. Sweetie, he was protecting you. Lily nodded hard. He tried. Every time Ethan came back, Ranger growled, but Ethan hit him with a stick, over and over. He wanted Ranger to run away, but he wouldn't. Her small voice wavered, cracking like thin glass. He wouldn't leave me. And then what happened? Allison whispered. Lily stared at her hands. I couldn't stand anymore. My legs stopped working. I felt dizzy, like the world was sideways. Her breathing turned shaky. And then Ranger kept nudging me, pushing me hard, like he was telling me to get up. But I couldn't. I really tried. She inhaled, trembling. So he crawled under me, and I fell on him. And I guess he decided that was okay, because he got up, and he carried me all night. Allison's eyes blurred. He carried me until the sun came up, Lily whispered. And then he carried me more, until he found here. The words hung in the room like smoke. Lily looked up suddenly, eyes wide again. Where is he? Can he hear me? Does he know I'm awake? Allison nodded gently. He hasn't left your door, sweetheart. Not once. Lily sank back into the pillows, tears sliding down her cheeks, but her voice steadier now. He saved me, she whispered. He saved me when nobody else knew where I was. And honestly, let me ask you this. If you were Lily, what would you call Ranger now? A hero? A guardian? Or something even bigger? And honestly, after hearing Lily whisper about Ranger carrying her through the dark like that, you'd think things would finally calm down inside Mercy Hill. But nope, not even close. Because the moment Lily drifted back to sleep, something started happening. Something that made the entire medical team stop pretending this was a normal rescue. It began small, like blink and you miss it. Small. Lily stirred in her sleep. Just a twitch, a tiny shiver. Nothing major. But at the exact same second, Ranger, lying outside the trauma room, let out this sharp whine and jerked his leg like something stung him. Emily Rhodes, night shift nurse, the woman who never gets rattled, looked over at the dog and murmured, "Weird timing." Yeah, weird timing. Except, it kept happening. Lily's breath quickened. Ranger's breath quickened. Lily whimpered. Ranger whimpered. Lily's fingers curled into her sheets. Ranger's paws flexed like he was bracing for impact. And it wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. It was synchronized. Mirrored. Emily nudged Dr. Reyes. You seeing this? He rubbed his eyes. Probably coincidence. But then, Lily jerked in her sleep, like someone shouted her name inside a nightmare. And Ranger's whole body convulsed. Not a little twitch. A full-body, muscles-locking kind of shake. Emily whispered, "Okay, that's not coincidence anymore." Reyes didn't answer. He couldn't. The man who had seen gunshot victims, crash victims, miracles, just stared at them like he was watching physics break. And then, God, this part still blows my mind. Lily shot upright in bed with a strangled, tiny scream. Not loud, Not long, just sharp enough to slice the air in half. At the same moment, Ranger lurched up like he'd been hit with an electric shock. He smacked his head into the trauma door window, hard enough that a spiderweb crack shot through the glass. Emily jumped. "What the? Ranger! Hey! Easy! Easy, boy!" But Ranger wasn't seeing her. His eyes were locked on Lily. Wide, glassy, terrified. Inside the room, Lily gasped like she'd just surfaced from underwater. Her chest heaved. Her hands clawed at her blanket. Tears slid down her face before she even knew she was crying. Reyes rushed to her side. "Lily, hey! Hey, sweetheart, breathe. You're safe." But she could barely get the words out. "It hurts. It hurts. He's... She didn't finish. She didn't need to, because Ranger was losing it outside. He slammed the door. Bang! Again. Bang! And again. Bang! Each hit weaker. But the desperation, worse. Like he was terrified she was being taken from him again. "Somebody open the door before he breaks it," Emily muttered. "Absolutely not," Reyes snapped. "That dog's bleeding out. If he gets in here in that state, he could collapse on her." "Yeah," Emily shot back, stepping into his space. "And if he stays out there, she's gonna collapse anyway." Reyes didn't have an answer, because right then, Lily curled into herself and started sobbing. Not scared crying, raw crying. The kind that comes from the center of your chest. And Ranger, poor broken Ranger, pressed his forehead to the window and let out the softest sound, like a whimper made of glass. Emily whispered, "They're connected, Dr. Reyes, like their souls are stitched together." Reyes swallowed. "It's not medically possible." "Yeah," Emily said. "Well, neither is a half-dead dog dragging a kid out of a forest for miles. But here we are." He didn't argue, because something else happened then. Something no one in that hallway would ever forget. Lily reached her hand toward the door, not blindly, not confused. She reached like she knew exactly where Ranger was. And outside, Ranger lifted his paw and placed it against the glass in the same spot. Perfect alignment, like two hands pressed together through a wall. Emily whispered, "Oh my God." Reyes exhaled, defeated by whatever force was working between them. "We can't separate them," he said quietly. "Not for long." "You think it'll hurt her?" Emily asked. Reyes shook his head softly. "No. I think it'll kill him." Lily finally stopped crying. Her breathing eased. Not perfect, but steadier. And Ranger, he settled too. His body slumped against the door, exhausted, but calm the moment Lily's hand stayed on the glass. Minutes passed. Calmer. Not safe. No one thought safe, but quieter. Finally, Emily whispered, "I don't understand it." Reyes shrugged softly. Doesn't matter if we understand. What matters is, whatever's keeping that girl alive, he's on the other side of this door. They stood there, doctor, nurse, dog, and girl, connected by something no textbook could explain. And honestly, it leaves just one question hanging in the air. If two souls can link themselves like that, do you think it happens by accident? Or do you think some people, some hearts, are just meant to find each other? And the crazy part is, after that whole terrifying moment with Lily and Ranger mirroring each other through a door like their hearts were wired together, everybody thought the worst was finally calming down. Like, okay, the girl's stable, the dog's hanging on, the nightmare forest is behind them. Maybe they could breathe for a second. Yeah. No. Because the universe apparently took that as a challenge. It started subtle. So subtle you'd think it was just hospital stuff. A flicker in one of the ICU hallway lights. Just a quick, dim, bright dim, like the bulb was tired of its job. Emily looked up, mumbling, "Seriously, now?" The light flickered again, harder. Then the one next to it joined in. Then another. Dr. Reyes frowned. Maintenance better not be screwing around right now. But it wasn't maintenance. Not even close. Because suddenly the entire hallway went thick, like the air gained weight. Harder to breathe. Heavy. Too still. And Ranger felt it first. Still lying against the trauma door. Half-conscious, bleeding, weak as hell. His ear twitched. Then his head lifted. Slow. Stiff. Like he was waking up inside a nightmare. And then he growled. Not confused. Not warning. A deep, chest-shaking, ancient sound that made everyone nearest freeze mid-step. Emily's eyes widened. "Ranger? What? Hey. What's wrong, buddy?" He didn't look at her. He was staring past her, down the hallway, at nothing. At least, nothing yet. Reyes stepped into the hall, following the dog's gaze. "Who's down there?" The lights buzzed again, flickering harder, and then the side entrance door, one nobody used at night, clicked open. Just a soft click, barely loud enough to notice. But Ranger stood up like electricity shot through him. A limp. A stagger. But he stood. Eyes locked on that doorway. Someone stepped inside. Scrubs. Surgical mask. Clipboard. Looked normal. Looked fine. But the second he moved deeper into the hall, something felt off. Like the shadows didn't sit right around him. Like he existed a half-second too slow. Emily whispered, "Who the hell is that?" Reyes shook his head. "Not one of mine." The man walked closer. Steady steps, but stiff, like a puppet pretending to be human. Ranger growled louder. his whole body trembling with effort he absolutely did not have. But he didn't care, because he knew. Before any human connected the dots, Ranger knew. The man stepped into the brighter patch of hallway and lifted his head. And that was it. That was the moment everybody understood something was very, very wrong. Because the eyes staring back at them weren't tired doctor eyes, or stressed nurse eyes, or visitor eyes. They were dead, cold, shiny with something twisted and familiar. Rhea's froze. Emily's breath caught. A security guard muttered, "Oh God, no." Because behind that cheap disposable mask was Ethan Crow. Lily's kidnapper. The monster from the woods. The reason Ranger was bleeding. The reason Lily screamed in her sleep. He smiled behind the mask. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe it was just his eyes doing that awful crinkling thing. But it was enough to send a shock through the entire hallway. Time 1.6. And then he spoke. Not loud, not angry, just soft, almost sweet. "I'm here for my girl." Reyes stumbled back. Adrenaline hitting so fast he dropped his pen. Emily whispered, "You son of a..." Security moved too slow. Way too slow. Because Ranger was already airborne. He didn't hesitate. Didn't warn. Didn't look around for permission. He launched himself at the trauma door window, the one already cracked, and hit it with every last ounce of strength left in his body. Crack! Glass shattered into a rain of shards. People ducked. Someone screamed. Emily threw her hands up. And Ranger. He didn't even flinch as shards sliced through his fur. He landed hard, skidding across the tile, leaving a swipe of blood behind him. And then he sprinted. Full speed. Deadly focus. Straight at Ethan Crow. Crow didn't even get to blink. 1 second he was smirking behind that stupid mask, and the next he was on the ground, slammed by 70 pounds of fury that should have been unconscious. Ranger latched onto his arm with a sound so raw it barely qualified as a growl, more like a battle cry. Crow howled, twisted, fought back, but Ranger didn't let go. Not this time. Not ever again. Emily shouted, "Call security, now!" Reyes yelled, "Crow is inside the ICU! Lock down the floor!" Alarms blared. Lights went red. The whole hallway erupted. And right in the middle of that chaos, Ranger held on. Bleeding. Breaking. Still fighting. Because Lily was behind that door. And if Ethan Crow came for her again, he was gonna have to get through Ranger's teeth first. And honestly, the second Ranger slammed into Ethan Crow, the whole ICU went from "something's wrong" to "holy hell, we're about to witness a murder" in half a heartbeat. There was no time to react. No breath to catch. Nothing. It was chaos. Pure, violent chaos. Ethan hit the floor hard, skull smacking the tile with a crack that echoed down the hallway. His mask flew off, revealing that twisted, dead-eyed smirk he carried into Lily's nightmares. But Ranger didn't give him a chance to gloat. He was on him, teeth first, like a bullet with claws. He latched onto Ethan's forearm, jaws clamping so tight you could hear the crunch over the alarm sirens. Ethan shrieked. Not a normal scream. Something between rage and shock, and a little bit of, "This wasn't supposed to happen." "Get him off me!" Ethan howled, thrashing like a wild animal. But that wasn't happening. Not today. Not while Lily was behind that door with a lock that wasn't nearly strong enough. Ranger was a mess. Bleeding, limping, ribs showing, patches of fur missing. But none of that mattered. He was fighting like something more than a dog, more than instinct, something that looked an awful lot like purpose. Ethan rolled, slamming Ranger into a metal cart. Supplies exploded everywhere. Needles, gauze, glass vials bursting like tiny grenades. "Security!" Emily screamed. "Hurry up!" But Ethan wasn't waiting for anyone. With his free hand, still wrestling Ranger's jaw, he reached toward his boot. And that's when everything slowed. Movie slow. Nightmare slow. Ethan pulled out a knife. Not a pocket knife. Not something small. A hunting blade. 8 inches. Thick handle. Sharp as hell. Emily gasped. "Oh my God! No!" Ethan didn't aim for Ranger's head. He didn't aim for his legs. He went straight for the chest. He drove the knife down, fast, vicious, and it sank in. All the way. Right between Ranger's ribs. And the sound Ranger made. I swear. It didn't sound like a dog. It sounded like something breaking inside the air itself. A choked, guttural cry that froze everyone mid-step. Blood sprayed. Hot, dark, everywhere, splattering the bed, the monitor, the wall, Ethan's hands. Ranger's body jerked. His paws slipped. His back legs buckled. But here's the part that shouldn't be possible. He didn't let go. Even with a knife in his chest, he bit harder. Ethan screamed again, full volume agony, swinging the knife sideways, trying to bit free. Ranger twisted, dragging Ethan farther from Lily's room. Every movement pulled the blade deeper, tearing muscle, ripping skin, blood pooling fast beneath him. "Stop moving!" a guard shouted. But Ethan didn't listen. Ranger didn't listen. It was war. Ethan smashed Ranger into the wall. Ranger slammed Ethan onto his back again. Ethan punched him across the muzzle. Ranger kept his teeth locked and dragged the man another few inches farther from Lily. You could see it. Plain as day. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to protect. Ranger's legs trembled. His breathing turned wet, ragged. Blood spreading beneath him like a shadow. Ethan finally ripped the knife free, another sickening squelch, and raised it again. Emily screamed, "Ranger, move!" But Ranger didn't move. He stood between Ethan and the door, shaking, dying, still standing. The knife came down, and 2 security officers tackled Ethan at full speed. They hit him so hard the floor shook. The knife clattered across the tile. Ethan howled, kicking, spitting, but 3 more guards piled on, forcing his face into the ground. "Ethan Crow, you're done!" a guard shouted, snapping cuffs onto his wrists. Ethan kept screaming Lily's name like a curse, like he still believed she belonged to him. But nobody heard him. Not over alarms, shouting, and Ranger collapsing. It didn't even look like a fall. It looked like a light going out. His body folded, slow, heavy, final. Emily dropped to her knees. "No, no, no, Ranger, stay with me. Stay with me, buddy." His eyes glazed, his breaths shallow, his fur soaked red. Lily woke up inside the room, hearing the commotion. She pushed herself off the bed, legs shaking, eyes wide with terror. She saw Ranger lying in a pool of his own blood. And the sound she made. God. It tore through the hallway like a crack in the world. "Ranger!" She tried to run, but a nurse caught her before she slipped on the blood. Ranger lifted his head. Barely. His eyes searched the room, slow, fading. He wasn't looking for help. He was looking for Lily. He saw her, and even half dead. He wagged his tail just once. Then his head dropped. The monitors beeped, and the whole ICU seemed to stop breathing. So let me ask you, if you were standing there in that hallway, watching Ranger bleed out after saving that little girl's life, what would you honestly feel? A heartbreak? B, rage? C, something else entirely? And after Ranger's body hit the floor like that, like someone had just unplugged the last bit of life inside him, the room didn't explode into chaos. It didn't even move. It froze. For a second, the entire ICU was this horrible still frame. Security on top of Ethan, nurses wide-eyed, Dr. Reyes pale as a ghost, Emily with Ranger's blood on her hands and no clue where to put it. And then Lily saw him. She didn't scream at first. Not a real scream. It was more like this tiny, strangled inhale that punched the oxygen right out of the hallway. Then she moved. Well, moved is the wrong word. She threw herself off the hospital bed. Wires snapped out of her arms. Monitors shrieked. Nurses lunged. Too slow. Her bare feet hit the tile, and she collapsed. Just straight up collapsed, the way a kid does when their legs forget they're supposed to hold them. But Lily didn't stop. She clawed at the floor, scratching tile, scraping skin, dragging herself toward Ranger, inch by inch. "Lily, no, sweetheart, stop, stop," a nurse begged. But Lily didn't even hear her. Her whole body shook. Her hair stuck to her face. Her gown twisted around her legs. But she kept crawling. And when she reached Ranger, She collapsed over his head, like she was trying to shield him from the world. Finally, she screamed, "Don't take him too!" It blasted out of her so loud, so broken, half the staff flinched. Not because it hurt their ears, but because it hurt something deeper. Lily grabbed Ranger's ears, his cheeks, anything she could hold. Blood smeared across her fingers, her wrists, her gown. But she didn't care. She didn't even look at it. She pressed her forehead to his, sobbing, her voice cracking into raw pieces. I don't have anyone left. Please. Please don't let him go, please. Every adult in that hallway looked away. Because watching a child beg the universe not to take the one thing keeping her alive, that's not something anyone is built for. Dr. Reyes knelt beside her, laying a careful hand on her back, like she might shatter if he touched her wrong. Lily, honey, listen to me, okay? His voice was soft, but it trembled. We're going to try to help Ranger, but you have to prepare yourself. Lily didn't look up. Reyes swallowed. He's lost a lot of blood, a dangerous amount. Nothing. He's already gone into shock. His heartbeat is barely there. Still nothing. And, truthfully, he hesitated. The kind of hesitation that means the truth is a knife. His chances are very low. Lily's shoulders tensed, curling in on themselves. Look at me, Lily, Reyes whispered. She lifted her head just enough to meet his eyes. And that look, God, that look was too much for any grown man to handle. Grief, terror, disbelief, and this tiny flicker of hope that refused to die. Can you fix him? She whispered. Reyes inhaled sharply. He couldn't lie. Not to her. We're going to try. The pause after try said everything. Lily let out a sob so quiet it hurt worse than the scream. She leaned closer to Ranger, nose touching his, her voice trembling through a storm. You can't leave me. You can't. You promised. You stayed in the woods. You stayed when he hit you. You stayed when I couldn't walk. So don't you stop now, okay? Don't stop now. Emily knelt beside them, tears streaming. Sweet girl, she whispered, we're here. You're not alone. But Lily shook her head, violently. He's all I have. Those 4 words hit the room like a hammer. Even the security guards, big, tough men who'd just tackled a knife-wielding monster, shifted, blinking quickly, pretending they suddenly had allergies. Ranger's breathing grew shallower. His chest barely moved. His eyes fluttered, clinging to one last thread. Lily panicked. No, no, Ranger. Wake up, please. Wake up. She grabbed at his collar. muddy, torn, still warm. Her fingers fumbled until she finally ripped it loose. She held it to her chest like it was his heartbeat. And she whispered, voice shattered, I'll hold it till you come back, okay? Forget who I am. The hallway went silent. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that crushes your ribs. Reyes finally motioned. Get a stretcher. Now. We're taking him to surgery immediately. As they lifted Ranger's limp body, Lily didn't let go. Not at first. Emily gently pried her fingers from his fur. Let them help him, Emily murmured. Lily nodded, but she didn't look up. She just pressed Ranger's collar to her chest and whispered something no one else heard. Whatever it was, it broke Emily's heart clean in half. They wheeled Ranger away. Lily collapsed into Emily's arms, shaking. And honestly, watching that stretcher disappear felt like watching hope flicker in the wind. And honestly, after they rolled Ranger away from Lily, after that stretcher disappeared behind those double doors, it felt like the whole world just tilted. Like the floor wasn't level anymore. Like everyone inside Mercy Hill was suddenly walking around with their stomachs in their throats. They pushed him straight into OR3. And the second the doors slammed shut, everything outside went quiet. The wrong kind of quiet. The kind where hope feels way too small. Lily sat on the hallway bench. Well, sat isn't the right word. She folded into herself, clutching Ranger's collar so tight her knuckles turned white. Knees pulled up, chin tucked down, eyes glassy, staring at nothing. Emily sat beside her, but Lily wasn't there. She was somewhere else. Somewhere dark. Somewhere cold. Somewhere where dogs didn't always come back. Inside the OR, though, it wasn't quiet. Not even close. The moment they got Ranger onto the table, his vitals tanked. Dr. Reyes barked, voice sharp enough to cut steel. Move! Move! Start fluids! Give me suction! Get pressure on that chest wound! Blood hit the floor. Metal clattered. Monitors screamed. A tech yelled, "He's crashing!" Reyes slammed his palm onto the table. "No, he's not. Not today. Charge to 60. The defibrillator paddles clacked together. Clear! Ranger's body jerked. The monitor jumped. Then flatlined again. Damn it! Reyes snapped. Again! Charge to 80. Outside, Lily squeezed the collar so tight, the buckle dug deep into her palm. She didn't even flinch. She just whispered, over and over, "Please don't leave. Please don't leave. Please don't leave me too." Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. Back, inside, the OR felt like a battlefield. Suction whined, lights buzzed, hands moved fast as instinct. Clamp that artery. More saline. He's losing blood faster than we can give it. Pressure, hold it. Ranger's heart stuttered again. A long, ugly beep sliced across the room. He's crashing again. Charge it, Reyes barked. Paddles on. Clear! Another jolt. Another desperate spike on the monitor. And for a moment, just one small, fragile moment, they thought he was stabilizing. But then, pressure's dropping, bleeding through the sutures. We're losing him. Reyes cursed under his breath. No. No. Stay with me, Ranger. You hear me? Stay. He leaned in, closer than a surgeon is ever supposed to, and whispered, That little girl needs you. Fight, damn it. Fight. Ranger's heart flickered, like a dying flashlight. The OR froze. Then, beep, 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 beep. A shaky rhythm, weak, but alive. Reyes exhaled so hard his mask fluttered. Good boy. Good boy. And the war continued. 30 minutes passed, then an hour, then 2. Outside, Lily never moved. Her voice went hoarse from praying, or pleading, or bargaining with whatever force she thought might listen. Emily tried to give her water. Lily pushed it away, tried to get her to rest. Lily didn't blink. Every time a nurse sprinted past with supplies, Lily's head snapped up, hope flickering, only to collapse again when it wasn't for her. Hours 3 and 4 were hell. Inside. Ranger's blood pressure dropped. His breathing faltered. His lungs filled with fluid. His heart stopped. Twice. Outside. Lily whispered until she had no voice left. Emily cried quietly when Lily wasn't looking. Even the security guards stood nearby, arms crossed tight, pretending they weren't terrified too. And then, somewhere between hour 4 and 5, something changed. The OR lights, harsh, white, unforgiving, shined brighter. The shouting got more focused. The alarms got less frantic. And for the first time since the fight, Reyes said, breathless, stunned, Okay. We might have something. A nurse leaned over the vitals, heart rhythm stabilizing, blood pressure climbing. He's responding to the transfusion. The tension in the room loosened, just a little, but enough to breathe again. Reyes wiped his forehead. All right, let's finish this. They worked another 40 minutes, stitching, cleaning, patching, forcing Ranger's body to remember how to survive. And then finally, Reyes stepped back from the table. His shoulders dropped. His eyes softened. He whispered, voice breaking, We got him. He made it. Outside, Lily sat up straight. The OR light, glowing red for hours, clicked off. Everything stopped. Lily's breath hitched. Emily covered her mouth. A nurse gasped. Then the door pushed open. Reyes stepped out, exhausted, sweaty, hands trembling, mask loose around his neck. But he was smiling. A small, tired, stunned smile. He knelt down to Lily's eye level and said, voice shaking, "He survived. He fought like he was trying to get back to someone." Lily clutched Ranger's collar to her chest, and for the first time since she came to that hospital, her lips formed the smallest, trembling smile. Because she knew who Ranger fought for. And the whole hallway did too. And after that night in the OR, after Ranger somehow clawed his way back from a place no one comes back from, something shifted around Mercy Hill. Not loudly, not all at once. More like a soft, quiet change in the air, where people walked a little slower past Lily's room, or whispered, "That's the dog," when they saw Ranger sleeping with tubes in his legs. But the biggest shift wasn't in the hospital. It was in Emily. She didn't say anything at first, not even to Reyes. But the way she stayed with Lily, the way she checked homework apps to see what grade Lily belonged in, the way she brushed Lily's hair like she already knew the rhythm of it, that said everything. So a week after Ranger's surgery, when Lily was finally strong enough to sit up for an hour without trembling, Emily filled out the paperwork. Not temporary guardianship, not foster placement, adoption, full, permanent, no turning back. When she told Lily, she didn't make a big speech. She just sat beside her, twisting a bracelet around her wrist, and said, "So, if you want, I'd really like to be your home. For good." Lily stared at her for a long time. Then the tiniest, quietest voice, Do homes leave?" Emily's throat tightened. "No, sweetheart. Homes stay." Lily didn't hug her. Not at first. She just leaned sideways until her forehead rested against Emily's arm. And honestly, that was the moment Emily decided she'd burn the world down before letting anything hurt that child again. Aurora, Colorado wasn't fancy. Not picture-perfect lawns, not bright white fences, just cracked sidewalks, nice neighbors, and sunlight that warmed concrete instead of blinding you. But for Lily, it might as well have been paradise. Emily set up Lily's room first. Soft yellow walls, a moon-shaped nightlight, stacks of blankets because Lily still got cold easily. She hung a mobile above the bed even though Lily said she was too old for baby stuff. Lily didn't complain. She just lay under it and watched it spin like she was memorizing what peace looked like. Ranger came home a week later, still stitched, still shaved in weird patches, still stiff and limping, but alive. Alive, which was a miracle on its own. The second Emily opened the car door, Lily forgot she was supposed to take it slow. She actually ran into the driveway. Ranger! He wagged his tail so hard he nearly toppled over. Emily laughed. Easy, both of you. You're supposed to be recovering. Neither listened. Ranger pressed his head into Lily's chest so hard she almost fell backward. Lily wrapped her arms around his neck and whispered something only he could hear. Whatever it was. Ranger closed his eyes and breathed out like he'd been waiting to hear it since the forest. From that day on, Ranger became Lily's shadow. Full shadow. If Lily sat, Ranger lay against her foot. If she brushed her teeth, Ranger plopped beside the bathroom door. If she went outside to water the plants, Ranger limped behind her, even when he probably shouldn't have been walking. Emily tried to scold him once. Ranger, buddy, you gotta rest. Doctor's orders. Ranger blinked slowly, like, ma'am, with all due respect, that child is my entire job description. Emily sighed. Yeah, that's what I thought. Nighttime was the biggest change. Back at Mercy Hill, Lily woke from nightmares 3, 4 times a night. Sitting straight up, gasping, crying silently because she didn't want to bother anyone. In Aurora, not a single nightmare hit her fully, because Ranger slept beside her bed, chin on the mattress, breathing slow and steady. If she twitched, he leaned closer. If she whimpered, he nudged her arm gently. If she woke up scared once or twice, he pressed his nose to her cheek until she smiled again. Emily watched them from the doorway one night and whispered, "They're healing each other." And she was right. Because Lily started laughing again. Not big belly laughs, just tiny giggles that slip out when you surprise yourself with happiness. She giggled at Ranger chasing butterflies, slowly because of the leg, at how he sneezed every time he smelled peanut butter, at how dramatic he acted when Emily gave him medicine. Then the laughter got louder, fuller, lighter. She ate more, talked more, started drawing again. Pictures of her, Emily, and Ranger holding hands and paws under a sun that took up the whole page. Emily stuck every drawing on the fridge. One night, after dinner, Lily looked up and said, softly, "Emily." "Yeah, sweetheart?" "Does this count as a family?" Emily blinked fast, nodded. Yeah, it does." Lily thought for a moment, then rested her head on Emily's shoulder. Ranger climbed into her lap. Well, half of him did, because he was huge, and sighed like he finally understood what safety meant. And right there, in that small, warm living room with mismatched pillows, a sleepy dog, and a kid who'd survived hell, a family was stitched together out of broken pieces, and somehow it was stronger than anything unbroken ever could have been. And honestly, just when things in Aurora finally started feeling steady, quiet mornings, school forms on the table, Ranger snoring under Lily's bed like a very loud guardian angel. The past came knocking. Literally. At the front door. Emily wiped her hands on a dish towel and opened it, expecting maybe a delivery, maybe a neighbor, maybe Girl Scouts selling cookies. Nope. Officer Jenna Lou stood on the porch, boots dusty, jacket half-zipped, holding a thick brown envelope like it was radioactive. "Hey," Jenna breathed, her voice fogging in the cold air. "Mind if I, come in?" Emily blinked. "Jenna? Of course. Is everything okay?" "Yeah. Well, no, I mean, nothing bad. It's just big." She stepped inside and Ranger immediately placed himself between Lily and the door. Not aggressive, just guarding. Jenna smiled softly. "Still watching her, huh?" Ranger thumped his tail once, but his eyes stayed sharp. Emily motioned to the couch. "What's going on?" Jenna didn't sit, didn't take her coat off, didn't even clear her throat. She just opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of old documents, photos, reports, all stamped with one unmistakable acronym: FEMA. Emily frowned. Why does FEMA have files on Ranger? Jenna exhaled, long and slow. Because Ranger wasn't always Ranger. Lily, coloring on the floor, looked up. "What does that mean?" Jenna crouched, eye level with her. Her voice softened. "Sweetheart, your dog had another name before he found you." Lily blinked. "What name?" Jenna held out the top photo. A younger Ranger, clean coat, bright eyes, wearing a tactical harness, stood beside a FEMA handler, both covered in mud, but smiling fiercely. The name printed under it: RES K9, Unit 14B. Emily's jaw dropped. Aries? As in the rescue dog? The one from the Oregon landslide? Yeah, Jenna nodded. The same one. Lily frowned. What's a landslide? Emily smoothed her hair. It's when part of a mountain collapses, baby. A whole lot of mud and rock. Jenna continued flipping through documents.